We know that most people who work in the mainstream media are liars, and they get paid very well. Many primetime CNN and MSNBC hosts earn between $20,000 and $30,000 per show, not per month, per show. These are people who are making $5, $7, $8 million a year. Do the math. Divide that by 20 shows a month or 5 shows a week, and that's what they're getting. That's how much their soul cost. Mine, on the other hand, is priceless, and it's not for sale. But what about TV doctors like Dr. Oz, who recently lost his bid for the Senate in Pennsylvania? There was something about him that I didn't like when he first announced, and I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but then I remembered this 2009 interview that he did on CNN promoting the H1N1 swine flu vaccine during that pandemic.
A national campaign to vaccinate tens of millions of Americans against the H1N1 or swine flu, as you know it, kicked off today. There's a new poll out from the Harvard School of Public Health that only 40% of adults say they are absolutely certain they're going to get the vaccine. That means most of the country is not. It's either on the fence or they're not going to do it. And I'm reading this, 51% of parents, only 51% are absolutely certain. I'll be honest, I'm in that 50% that isn't absolutely certain. So how do you convince me? How do you convince the other parents out there that we need to do this?
Careful, I'm going to get it.
Yes.
If that helps at all, but I'll tell you, my wife is not getting immunized her kids. Because I've got 4 of them, and when I go home, I'm not Dr. Oz, I'm Mr. Oz. But I'll tell you, my wife is not getting immunized her kids. Because I've got 4 of them, and when I go home, I'm not Dr. Oz, I'm Mr. Oz.
When you're at home, you're Mr. Oz, not Dr. Oz. So you're a famous doctor, trusted to give millions of people medical advice on television, but your wife won't follow your advice. And he wasn't man enough to overrule her, especially when medicine is his area of expertise. Isn't that like a chef who won't eat their own food? Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new here, because you're probably not going to hear this kind of information anywhere else. He must have forgot that he was on television there, being paid by CNN, and accidentally spoke like a real doctor. Could you imagine promoting a product to others that you yourself wouldn't allow your family to use? Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying that people shouldn't get the COVID vaccine or their boosters, and I'm not saying that they should either. I don't give medical advice. That's a personal decision that everybody's going to have to make on their own, with risks on both sides depending on someone's age and their health. But with Dr. Oz's odd promotion of the H1N1 swine flu vaccine back in 2009, which he says he wouldn't even give to his own children, you have to wonder, are there healthcare professionals today being hypocrites to the American people just for a paycheck, or out of fear that they may be ostracized as an anti-vaxxer or a conspiracy theorist? And again, I don't give medical advice. I will, however, recommend various products that have made my health tremendously better over the last 10 years that I think should be standard in everyone's home and office, but for some reason, most of society is still using old-fashioned, uncomfortable, and dangerous devices. I personally believe that everybody should be using an ergonomic keyboard, which helps alleviate or even prevent tendinitis and carpal tunnel. And yes, while I do use a laptop in my kitchen, I use an external keyboard for that reason and an external monitor to help with my posture so that I'm not slouched over all the time. I'll leave a link to the one that I use down in the description below if you want to check it out. For the same reason, I also use what's called a vertical mouse, which is basically an ordinary mouse, but the way that your hand sits on it is in a different position so your tendons aren't always twisted, which over many months and years or decades causes extra wear and tear on your tendons and can cause tendinitis or carpal tunnel. Now, if you're still young, you may be thinking that this isn't a big deal, but trust me, time flies and your age catches up with you. And especially if you're using a computer for an extraordinary amount of time, typing or even using the mouse like I do, editing videos, that causes what's called a repetitive stress injury on the tendons. And before you know it, you're 45 years old and your hair is going gray like me. And so you want to make sure to try to do everything that you can to avoid possible tendinitis or carpal tunnel by using ergonomic devices. And if you really want to go nuts, check out the Ergotron sit-stand workstations, which I've also linked down in the description and the pinned comments below, because they say that sitting all day, particularly at a computer, is just as bad for your health as smoking. So those are products that I highly recommend anybody use from any age. And again, the links are all listed down in the description below, so click it and head on over there and check them out.